Welcome back to Twin Oaks Farm Poultry on YouTube. Thanks for joining us. We're at our little home place in rural Southeast Ohio, USA. We call our place Twin Oaks Family Farm, and we raise meat chickens to produce poultry. So doing these videos is a great opportunity to let viewers see one way that chickens can be raised for meat production. There are multiple flock management approaches that can be used successfully, but we choose to raise our birds in a barn where it's safe for them from predators, and we don't have to worry about predators devastating our flock, and we can use good management practices with their water supply and feed supply and stocking density, and we are able to successfully produce chicken, because this is how we get real chicken for our supper tables. It comes from real chickens. so these birds are 39 days old. It's day 39 of raising this flock, and they were hatched on August 23rd, 2023, and it just takes anywhere from 35 to 42 days actually to successfully raise a flock of meat chickens and have them ready to be processed into poultry. The production schedule that we aim for is actually 42 days, but as an operation, we have to coordinate not only our farm preferences, but also other businesses with our production schedules. So we also have to coordinate with a professional processor, because we choose to take our chickens to a USDA inspected processing facility to have them processed into poultry. So we have to coordinate for a date with them, and then we also have to coordinate for a date with a professional hatchery to get our chicks hatched on or very close to the day we want, and then they ship them through the United States Postal Service to us, and so they come in the mail. So the day that they're hatched, they are shipped to us, and we start production. We call that day one, and then, like I said, we aim for 42 days. This flock, its production schedule ended up at 45 days, which is okay, but we are starting to find that we've been doing this 4 years, and we've had chickens and other livestock longer than that, but for like 20 years. But for doing the production of poultry, specifically from Cornish cross meat chickens, we've only had these kinds of chickens for 4 years. And so in 4 years and just over 2,000 birds, we're getting very consistent at our management practices and production approach. And so now we're actually finding that a lot of our birds are really finished around 35 days. So in going into 2024, we're probably going to aim for adjusting our production schedule to be closer to 35 days or a few days over that. So this is pretty typical activity level for birds, for Cornish rock cross meat chickens at this age that are content. So what you're seeing here is not birds that are laying down because they're sickly. They're not. These birds are healthy. They're thriving. They've grown at the rate they're expected to grow. They're basically ready. They're finished. They're basically ready for processing into poultry. We've got, being on day 39 here, going out to day 45, we've got about 6 more days to keep them thriving. So this is a pretty representative example of their activity level when they are content. Now, that being said, let me tell you, these are hungry birds. Hungry birds. They love food. They have a big appetite. We have a target feed consumption range for them to prevent overfeeding them. So it's kind of like the equivalent of like when we deal with our own appetites. If I get up in the morning, and not that I don't do this, trust me, I've done this a number of times, but if I get up in the morning and I say, well, I want a Dr. Pepper and a donut, chocolate glazed donut for breakfast, well, I very well may go to the store and get that. Does that mean that's what was good for me for breakfast? No, it doesn't. So just like with raising my kids, if every day of their lives they got up and said, Mommy, we want Mountain Dews and glazed pastries for breakfast. If they said that every morning, and I did it every morning, Would they be healthy boys, healthy young men today? No, probably not, right? Because I would not have provided good nutrition necessarily. I would not have fostered good habits in them necessarily. So, that wouldn't be good. So it's kind of the same with raising livestock. They basically, this flock is basically at this point saying to us, we want 200 pounds of feed every day or more. And we want the stuff that tastes good to us. And we as producers are basically saying to them, no, you need to have what's good for you. We're not gonna operate based on your wants. We're gonna operate based on your needs, and we're gonna give you the kind of food that's good for you and the quantity of food that's good for you. That's basically what it comes down to, being a producer. So we actually have them allotted at 100 pounds of feed every 24 hours. And what that means is we give it to them, and as the course of the day goes on, they end up eating it all before the 24 hours is over. And so then they immediately want more. So they're not going to immediately get more, and that's difficult for them. So in those times when they've eaten their feed allotment and they want us to put more food in the feeders, they're not quite as calm and content. They become a little hangry. Yeah, a little hangry. Hungry and angry, hangry. And they also can become a little bit snarly. Like if I would go in the meat bird pen right now, they're very pleasant with me. Don't give me any hassle. They might approach me, but there's no problem being inside the finished pen with them. If I go into the finished pen later when all their feeders are empty and they're starting to get hungry, they'll come up and they'll peck at my feet. And they're looking for things to explore to find out if they're food. So that, you do observe that. And then to step that up a notch, then when it is the next time to put their feed in, well, it's not quite the running of the bulls in Pamplona, but it's intense. So, just like this morning, day 39, we gave them 100 pounds of feed. In the morning, their feeders had been empty. We are using lighting level to kind of impact their activity level to basically give them a natural nighttime, just like they would have if they were a free-range chicken. And that sort of shuts down their activity level overnight. So that kind of blocks out like 12 hours that they're not just having their brains in their stomachs and wanting food. But then when the natural light of the sunlight starts to filter in and we go into the building and we turn on their light, buddy, then they're hungry. And it's definitely like a mob mentality. They're all trying to get to the food. So at that point, we have to try to get the feeders filled as quickly as we can and as calmly as we can, and kind of watch that the birds aren't really giving each other a hard time, and try to kind of be peace officers at that point. So so they did well this morning. On day 40, I think we're going to try to film that. Oh, there's that word. I show my age when I say that. When I say film, we'll try to record that, but that's gonna happen. I'm gonna say film because I'm that age. I'm on the 40 plus spectrum. So anyway, I do want to show you these two birds. This gal is actually up. Well, there she sat down. But let's see, what day would we have shown this? Maybe day 36. Maybe Broilers day 36. Probably not too much earlier than that, but these two birds were potential cull birds out of the flock for leg issues. And that is a problem that Cornish rock cross meat chickens can have. Two culprits that can really devastate a flock are leg issues and heart issues. So you did get to see her move a little bit. Okay, so she still limps, but y'all, when we separated her out of the flock, she was limping way worse than that, and she wouldn't get up on her own initiative to move. And she has one leg that works 100%. The other leg she wasn't using it any. There's no obvious sign of injury. She looks healthy. She is smaller, so she might have been a little bit of a runt, but she kept up with the growth of the flock for the most part, maybe like a month, and then she didn't keep up with the growth of them after that. And you can see the big size difference here. She is a female, the one beside her is a male, so he would naturally probably be a little bigger than the female, but he's quite a bit bigger, so she's on the small side. And then the deal with him was, like, he couldn't, it seemed like form to function, like he couldn't get his legs underneath him and keep his balance. And it's like, as they start to get bigger, sometimes their balance is just skewed. You know, they just grow so rapidly. So y'all aren't getting to see it, but let me show you. He actually, both of those birds, where I've put those wooden pieces as markers, that's where both of those birds were overnight. And their feeder was empty here. And when we put feed in that feeder, both of those birds got up and walked from there to there. So he is mobile now. Had we left these two birds in the flock at large, and they had to compete with all these birds to go to food and water, they would be worse off than they were. They are better off than they were because we were able to take them out of the flock at large and give them the opportunity to be in a calmer area where there's less stress mainly because there's less competition with other birds to get to resources, including food and water. So they're doing great. So they're going to be able to get through production successfully and go to processing with the flock. And had we not pulled them out, that probably would not be the case. And I will tell you, what typically is the end of birds with leg issues is that they can't get to food and water, and so they end up starving and they end up dehydrating because they don't have the mobility to go to food and to go to water. And so if the setup of the operation does not allow the producer the flexibility to remove birds like this with leg issues from the flock at large, these birds would end up dying in production from having to compete with all these other birds. They just can't do it. Also, sometimes we put risers. Well, we do put risers, like we just use scraps of wood under the feeders and waters. You can kind of see that there. If we have to add in more and more of those we do that to keep the birds standing up at the feeders and waters. And we do that. We want them standing up at the feeders and waters so they're bearing weight on their legs during their rapid growth so that their legs do stay strong enough to bear their weight. So if we have to keep adding risers to get those birds to stay standing, then birds like these that don't stand well for whatever reason, it can get to a point where they cannot reach the feeders and waters, especially if they're like her and they're kind of a smallish bird anyway. They can have a hard time getting to the feed and water trays. So that's why I say usually what gets a bird with leg problems is that they end up starving or dehydrating because they can't reach the feeders and waters anymore. So maybe on day 40 we can catch it so that we can get these two like walking to the feeder or something and you can see them walk. But these are a success story from having been pulled out of the flock at large. They are able now to have mobility that they did not have and would not have if we had not taken that measure for them. So other than that, again, I got a little longer on the video here, but when you get to raising these birds, there's just so much that's interesting about the chickens themselves and about how you can impact successful production. So it's hard to limit it to like just 5 or 6 minutes when we get talking about them. But anyway, they're doing really well. Day 39, 296 birds. We need to go to day 45 on this flock, and they're looking good. So I am going to add bedding material to the finished pen today. Actually, their bedding material doesn't look bad, but with only 6 days left, we want to keep these birds super clean as possible, and the more fresh bedding we're willing to put down, the cleaner the birds get and stay. As we finish up, final thing I'll show you, if you can see where this bird is laying, and he's probably going to react and still let me touch him, but up front where the chicken breast is developing, right here, that's the crop. And so you can kind of see there was a bulge there in the front of that bird, and that's where he's been to eat with his feathers fluffed out. You can't see it, but that furthest side of his chicken breast is bulged out more than the side closest to us, and that's the crop. And actually, so he's eaten, and the food is stored in there temporarily as the digestion process starts to work on that bird. And I wanted to show you that because as a poultry producer, especially with meat chickens, that's something that we regularly look for from the time they're a day old. We visually observe, does the bird's crop look filled? And do all of our birds in the flock, as well as we can tell, appear to be having a filled crop on a regular basis? Because if they're not, it means they're not getting to food. And if they are, it means they are getting to food. So, like even for example, I was going to show you this hen that's standing right in front of us. Like I'm looking at her and I'm assured that she has been to eat. Her crop is full because it's bulging a little bit at the chicken breast. So it's that's kind of an interesting thing. So that's something that we watch for. But we appreciate y'all joining us. I know 15 minutes plus is a long video for us, but we appreciate you bearing with us, and thanks for joining us at Twin Oaks Farm Poultry. So we will do a day 40 video, but it's going to fall on a Sunday, so it's not going to upload till Monday. So we'll be signing off for now, day 39, and we'll upload day 40 as its own video and day 41 as its own video on day 41 on Monday. We don't upload anything to media on Sunday, and I don't upload anything to personal social media on Sunday either. So I hope that y'all have a day of the week that you set aside, disconnect from tech and connect to folks. God bless y'all. We appreciate you being here. Please join us again back in the barn next time.